looking good.
I think this will work.
Better than we did last time.
Come on in. We're just getting onto the YouTube live. We're working on it.
Okay.
Welcome, Madison.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, please do. Sorry, I don't. I
Is that
didn't.
okay there?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have some coffee on, some tea, okay.
Smells
delicious. Cookies, treats, yes.
That's how you lure people to me, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't know.
Just the volume stuff. No, go back up there. The volume, no, left, right there. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's okay.
Do we have anybody online? Doesn't look like it at this point. Okay. Well, we'll see if anybody jumps on as we go.
See what else?
All right.
Did you go back?
Worry.
Oh, it's miserable.
It is nasty,
Yeah, the second the bus pulled up for me.
yes. The kettle has been boiled and there's probably enough water in there if somebody wants tea.
I'm just gonna coffee, that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you ladies don't mind, since we're live streamed, we'll just start and then once you have your coffee tea, we'll get into the rest of that.
Perfect.
All right, so
We're trying to figure out if we're smart enough to open the coffee.
Oh, yeah, untwist. There you go.
You got it, yeah.
It's a screening tool.
Yeah, that's right. All right, go ahead, Shannon.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Looks like we don't have a quorum today, unfortunately, so we'll be unable to approve any minutes or make any other decisions. But before we get started, I'd just like to go around the table and have everybody introduce themselves. I'm Shannon Gallons, Chair of the AAC.
And I'm Diane Morel, Accessibility Coordinator for the city.
I'm Gabrielle Nicholson, and I was the election coordinator for the city of Sault Ste. Marie.
Rachel Jasinski, I am the city clerk. Madison Zupa, deputy city clerk.
Dan Jennings, committee member.
Lisa Bezo Allen, Ward 2 councillor and committee member.
Stephanie, I'm with the planning department, I'll be doing the minutes today.
I'm Sarah, I'm the Howard Tech.
Carol Magnan, committee member.
Denise Elliott, committee member.
Okay, so our first order of business is some information with regards to the post-election and an accessible voting demonstration.
So it's over. It's over. It went really well. I was going to say we were terrified. No, I was terrified. Madison, just the most excited person about municipal elections you will ever meet, and Gab was just beyond measure. She was so awesome at planning everything, and there were so many new things that we did, both with the e-polls and the tabulators, and then of course with the tabulators, that is of most interest to this group, is all of the tools that we had to enable people to vote independently. So there's always been provisions in the legislation for people to have somebody help them mark a ballot, or I can vote by proxy, whatever, but we believe that fundamentally, everybody should be able to vote themselves. So with the tabulators, we were also able to get these tools that we're so excited about. We only had them available in advance vote days. I did have some public comment on, you should have it at every voting location, which would be 40 in 2022, and unfortunately prohibitively expensive. But we didn't have that many people ask to use them at the advanced votes, but we were so excited that we had them in the event that they wanted to. And Gab is the hurt.
And I could say too that we were all there for advanced vote day, and we had 2 individuals come in to utilize the accessible tools that Jeff's just pulling out. We can't actually do a live demonstration today because the tabulators still have live election memory cards in them. So we brought all the equipment just to show how it works and sort of go through the process with you. The next time around, when we have our training modular or like the module in there, we can certainly do a live demo with our training. We can't actually use it right now because it's only accepting live ballots. We don't want to do that. And all of our tabulators right now are still secure, locked for the time period that we need to for our purposes. But we had 2 individuals, I can provide some feedback on what happened during advanced vote days. The 2 individuals come in who wanted to utilize the accessible tools that we had provided, new to us this time around. The first person made an attempt with the paddles, and we had these long cords. We were trying to give people more privacy so that they could hear better, and also just to kind of give everyone a bit more privacy during the voting process, right? So we had longer cords that were provided to us by our IT staff, and the process was going quite well until the very end when they hit the final button, and the cause of the disruption was because of the length of the cable. So it actually caused the whole process to stall. The voter was exceptionally kind, and she was very excited to try it. She gave us some really great feedback on it. You know, wasn't discouraged that it was the first time we'd ever used it, so we certainly were appreciative of her patience as we walked through the process. But we did take some corrective measures so that the next person who came to use it successfully cast their ballot independently and secretly. So we had a printer set up, and Gab actually brought a test ballot and the secrecy folder. So what ended up happening, we have 3 different tools. One is a sip and puff tool.
And it goes by the edge of the desk. We had a raised desk based on feedback from our meeting. We were able to get quite a taller desk put in, and this was secured like that, tight. And then we had disposable sip and puff covers to go on top of this.
So I'm just going to pause there for a minute. So Carol, what's happening here is, so Gabrielle has attached to the edge of the table a clamp that has a long gooseneck to it, which is flexible. And then on the end of that would be a disposable single-use straw that someone who had a mobility disability would be able to, they understand the technology because they already use it in other areas of their life. So it's called sip and puff. So they would be wearing headphones, listening to the instructions, you know, to scroll to the next name, sip, to go back, puff, or whatever the instructions are. So that's what we've got here. And I think when we get to the next ones, if we could move that over maybe beside Carol so that she can really understand how these others are used. Yeah. I think that's where will be very helpful to you, Carol.
Right, yes. Thank you.
All right, keep going. I'm
Yeah, no,
sorry.
and that's great. No, so there's, they're all connected to a remote control, and it has a number of different buttons of different colors, so up and down aerials. It actually has some braille. Yeah, and we'll bring it over to Carol. There's some blue buttons and red buttons and yellow buttons, and some braille on it for people to use it in different ways. So highly visible for people to large face buttons, Okay. And all of the devices are connected to the remote control. You don't necessarily use the remote control to navigate the devices, but you certainly need to plug them into that device to connect to the printer. So this is the mechanism, it's sort of the brain of the operation where we connect it to that, and then it goes into to the tabulator, and then there's another connector to the printer. So when we had a demonstration of the Civic Puff before the election, and we were able to work through some of the kinks with the printer. We were able to successfully use the Civic Puff device. Unfortunately, no one had requested the use of it at Advanced School Days, but we were prepared and ready to have that deployed if necessary. The two individuals that requested preferred the paddles. So there are two paddles, or one paddle with two buttons. They're large face buttons with a right and a left, and it's blue and red. And the instructions on the headset would say, for the next candidate, press the left button, or for the next previous candidate, can press the right button. So we did have someone who came in and used it successfully. It was a great moment for me. I was part of it. I felt extremely proud of it.
So exciting.
No one saw the ballot. So what happened was the ballot came off the printer, but we were ready there with the secrecy envelope. So Carol, there's a black folded secrecy folder that the ballot is an 8.5. We can pass them over to so that feel it. But it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with all of the candidates listed. And the printer, we didn't look at that particular ballot, but during our testing phase, when it came off the printer, it actually looked like it had been marked with a Sharpie, and it would go through the tabulator like all the ballots that people would have manually filled out. So we were there prepared with a secrecy folder, so when it came off the printer, it would slide into the secrecy folder, no one would see that ballot, and the tabulator officer would successfully pass it through the tabulator. And the tabulator machine is it's not a very, surprisingly not a very big machine. It
looks like a shredder, which is
hilarious. Shredder, and it was a big white ballot box where the ballots get fed through. And so we were there prepared for that secrecy folder, and I can give that to pass around to if people want to feel and fill it out. And it was quite a good experience. It was lengthy, only because the audio instructions were quite slow, but there was an option to speed it up, so you could go through and speed up the instructions, and the volume needed to be increased quite a bit just due to the background noise of the location. So
yeah, we hadn't realized that, because especially at advanced vote, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of chat and that kind of stuff. I was told to be quiet.
And with the cord not being, with us having to switch out that extended cord, the cord from where somebody was using the accessible toolkit versus where the tabulator was a lot closer than.
right.
We're kind of like, should we put it in a separate room so that they can hear it? But we also like it in the big room so that it's fully integrated.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So we did have some recommendations we were going to talk to our vendor about, just to say, next time maybe we can get some noise canceling headphones instead of like the standard issue ones that were provided to us, so that it could fully go around the ear to try to cancel some of that background noise. Certainly working on the volume, maybe the first set of the volume could be increased slightly so that we don't have to go through that process of increasing the volume the first time around.
It was really good that it didn't stop the process for everybody else, right? So while that took quite a bit of time for that person to go through using the tools, other people, their ballots could keep being fed through the tabulator. So it wasn't like, oh, there's stuff going on here. It was very smooth.
Yeah.
Good.
So we have really, as far as, from the feedback we received from people that had utilized it, they were very appreciative, also provided some really great feedback for us for the next time we use it, because this was the first time we had deployed it. We're taking that back to our vendor for 2026 for the next planning phase for the next election. And certainly it's something that we want to continue to use as long as we're using the time.
And thank you for your advice and your input. And
yes. And the higher table was really beneficial, because the people who used the devices did have higher equipment, so we wanted to make sure it was accessible for underneath the table. So that was really good advice, and we made that happen. It was great, and we also looked to 2026, that maybe one of the recommendations was to have at least one out on voting day, so in one of the locations. And maybe, strategically located, or perhaps if we could, do.
Here,
Maybe here or something like that.
Yes, I would be all for that.
Yeah, so we're hoping that for the next election, we can have an on voting day strategically located, and have a tabulator associated with it, so we can have one active on voting day. So that is to have all the equipment active on voting day. So that's more accessible on voting day. So it was really a great thing. I felt really great to participate in that. It was really great to get all the feedback from everybody. We did have the traditional tools as well. We had large print candidate lists. We had larger markers for dexterity and for the tactile. We had like almost like we had the regular Sharpies, which were good, but then we also had a few like the larger versions. The only thing we didn't do this year out in the field that we did in 2018, I think, was the templates.
yeah, we didn't, and I don't know if any of you remember the templates that we used to do on the traditional ballot, and I don't know how we would adapt it to this ballot. In the old way, you would have all your names and then the dots that they would sign. We had our office services staff do a cardstock template over top of it so that they could feel their way down. And I think that, I don't even know how, I think that would be far too confusing with trying to do it this way, that I think those devices are far more user-friendly for that.
We did have a community, we were going to reach out to, actually I have a meeting with them tomorrow to kind of discuss some of the successes that they had. They've been using this for quite a few years at the tabulators for quite a few elections. And they were looking into a Braille template for a similar ballot. So I want to see how that went, because it was the first time they were using it as well. So maybe that we could deploy something like that in 2026 as well, to have something, or even for the advanced voting, or to see how we can deploy that kind of template. They actually had someone design it, I think locally, when we were talking to, it was the city of Guelph, I believe it was Guelph that we're talking to, that we're looking into it. So I don't know if it actually ended up being deployed or not, but I'm gonna have a follow-up meeting with them tomorrow to just see how that went and see if that's something that we can look into for 2026 as well. So rather than the templates, but maybe
Cover of some sort.
yeah, there's some sort of
Tactile.
Over top.
over top,
something.
yeah. So I'm not exactly sure all the details, but I just want to find out more. information.
Maybe similar to our cardstock one, but a bit more sophisticated.
Perhaps, yes. So we are going to look at the best practices from other municipalities on this type of ballot, because this was the first time we used a composite ballot where all three of the offices were all located on the single ballot. So just trying to figure out some possible solutions for the replacing that template.
And I should say that we did consult with CID about signage and accessibility of the ballot in terms of colors and all of that sort of thing. Unfortunately, because you will know better than I how their offices work now. In the past, they've been able to come to our advanced votes for a window of time to meet their clients, and I guess they didn't have the capacity for it. But Canadian Hearing did, so we did have sign language interpreter from noon to 2 on each of the advanced vote days, and a lot of those clients did come, and we got pretty excited about that.
It was very exciting to see, yeah.
And watch
Yeah,
the
it was
interaction,
awesome.
especially when they were just having the conversation after they, done their voting. It's just fascinating.
Right. It might be considered eavesdropping, but.
Because you don't actually know what they're signing.
But it is beautiful. to
It
watch.
is, it's like a dance almost.
And I did find too that it was nice when we were interacting with, when someone was with the sign language interpreter, or interpreter, and the individuals were showing me some things too. I learned a lot that day where they were showing me how to do, just simple signs to be like, here's, thank you, and those types of things. And I learned myself something that I hadn't known before. So I was really appreciative that they were willing to take the time to answer questions for myself, or to, just talk me through some things that maybe I hadn't thought of before. So it was really nice that they took the time to do that, and I was really appreciative of that. And we also took comments from the floor that day. Like, we had someone that self-identified as a visually impaired, and they came over and said, these signs right here, I can't really see them very well. There's not enough contrast against the wall. It would be really helpful if we put yellow bordering around them so the white background of the wall didn't blend in with the sign. And we went, that's excellent feedback. We went out and got some yellow tape and started with the borders around everything. Just to try to make it more accessible that way. And we're really grateful for that feedback as well, so that we were able to do that kind of after the first day, and then hopefully that improved the sightlines for those signs on the following 2 advanced school days. So it was great, a great learning experience for myself. I was really appreciative of everyone's feedback. Certainly, if there's feedback from this committee as well, happy to chat about it. And that's sort of the plan for 2026 in terms of what we learned and how we're trying to bring things forward, and best practice and recommendations for future use of equipment, for future use out in the field of different tools. We did have, again, we did have magnifying glasses out, or the magnifying sheets. A lot of people found the sheets more helpful. The feedback I received that the magnifying sheets were a bit more friendly than the actual glass itself. So things like that were really helpful if people were willing to talk to us about that and give us that feedback. So, but I don't know if anyone has any other specific questions.
I do. The magnifying sheets are not good for everyone.
Okay.
Some people, it's totally useless.
I was gonna say, it doesn't give you very much.
Totally useless. I went and voted, it was a few years back, and I can't remember what election it was, at the Water Tower Inn. And they gave me a magnifying glass. It may not work for everybody, but it works great for me. And it had the black handle, and it was a circle about that big. And it had lights all the way around it. It was about the size of a plate for a cup and saucer. Okay, so you turn on the light, and you put it over top, and everything's lit up, and it makes everything big. And I don't know where you guys can purchase something like that. I don't know where they got that from. In fact, I think
We bought some from CNIV in 2018 that are lighted, bigger than that, but not as big as probably like that.
That would be no good though.
Oh, they're bigger.
Bigger than that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the size of this.
It's about the size of a dessert plate.
Okay.
Yeah, where this would be in what we bought from CNIV that are lighted battery operated lights would be in between, I would say.
Well, that, and what Carol is talking about, I've got one of those, and I bought it at Tooltown.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, good to know. Probably cheaper than
Very
the.
No
probably
kidding.
It was,
Yeah.
it might have been around $10 maybe, or something like
Oh, we
that.
paid more than that.
And it's a couple of years ago I bought it, but it
No,
was
we'll
right
put that on
there
our
at
shop
cash.
list.
So the circle had lights all the way around?
Yeah,
That's probably the.
I was gonna say.
and the handle, yeah.
Good to know.
And maybe that's something, if we can find some, locally, we can bring them here ahead of time to see if it's, would be suitable. So I think our intention is to still have the magnifying glasses at the locations and the magnifying sheets, so that we have alternative, options.
Because everybody's vision loss is different, everybody's.
Yeah.
So what works for me might not work for somebody else, huh?
Yeah.
So,
And I think one of the other things we might try to do, we had large print, the names of the candidates in large print, but it didn't appear the same as the ballot. There's a list of names. So I think one of the suggestions we got was to actually enlarge the ballot piece itself and have that available, so that you're looking at what
The
the
same.
same, the larger version of the ballot rather than just a list of names. So that's something we're gonna take back as well. And try to get something maybe even on
11 by
11 by
17.
17 or something along those lines, so that we can have a larger text.
And the red boxes as well, I think there's circles on voting day. On the ballot face, the selection, the examples we have here are squares, but on voting day, there were circles, and they were red. We got feedback from CNIB that they should be black or dark gray. Unfortunately, our vendor wasn't able to make that change for us, but they were able to make changes. I think it just
I don't know if we have one that's.
at the top, at the header of each ballot, depending on if it was an English separate, an English public, or a no school support, it was color coded. All of the ballots were either gray, black, or white. That was feedback we received from CNIB as well, to get rid of any color, because this was red. There was a red at the top, and they just had stated that it's not great to have
Or
the,
the colors were inverted, right? So
Yeah.
It was like white text on red
On red.
background or red text on a white background, like it was, they asked us to invert the colors so that people didn't have that or see them, so.
yeah,
Yeah, so that was something that we were able to actually.
that was,
accommodate for
yeah, that was able
so.
to change, just not the.
Red's a bad color.
We were surprised that because the vendors Dominion voting, I mean, they're huge. And we were really surprised that they weren't aware of those accessibility issues in terms of color of ballots, but, so we taught them something.
Good. Good. Good feedback all around. Any other feedback, Carol?
So when someone goes to vote, people like to stay as independent as they possibly can. So somebody goes there with a disability and they want to use this thing here, okay? Do you offer this to them, or do you say, well, we'll just help
We advertised the tools out to the public, so we didn't do an offering it to every single person, but if someone asked for it, we would get them situated and always ask first to say, you know, even for the mic or the headset, you know, is it okay if we place it on your headset, or would you prefer to, you know, do it yourself? Or if they had someone with them, sometimes they would, you know, how would you like to have that placed on you? And those types of questions. We were always kind of asking questions first, but it wasn't.
And people knew they were there and asked us because we felt that it was impolite of us to make the assumption that, right? So there's a line there.
Yeah, so we definitely had it, and it was very visually available. Like it was in a spot that was, you could see what it was, but also trying to be private enough so people have secrecy and privacy in their voting, right?
How about if you just asked a general question, like, do you require any type of assistance to vote today? So that you could offer that if they indicated that they did require some assistance, in
Exactly.
case someone was unable for whatever reason to read that that type of assistance was available.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Because that's what I found, like myself, I don't require any type of that assistance, but I was kind of listening, and I went to the advanced poll, so I knew it was available there if I did need it, but I was kind of listening to see whether anybody would ask me whether I required the assistance, and no one did.
It is a fine line, and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
you want to be respectful, you want to be equitable.
yeah,
And, you know, some people would take offense if,
That's the,
yeah. So
but even just in general, for the door reader or something, to ask everyone, do you require any assistance today?
Actually, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
then you're across the board.
Yeah, with the wording like, let us know if you need any assistance, would that be acceptable
Yeah.
as well? Because I mean, then you're not saying, you just say, let us know.
yeah,
And if
exactly.
you know, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm with Lisa, I hate the assumption thing, and I do it all the time, but I do appreciate knowing that there is someone there willing to help if I do need something.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback.
It occurs to me that it would have been a good idea if we had signage. I mean, we assumed because we advertised it so widely that people knew it was there. And it just occurs to me now that if we had signage to say
Yeah.
that these are the tools available at this voting location as you're coming in,
Yeah.
right?
You're wrong.
Yeah.
Clarify that?
I can't see the signage.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah.
That's what I was just
Maybe a
gonna
bit of
say,
both.
maybe, yeah, radio
It's a
advertising
combination
as well.
Yeah.
And I'm just giving feedback from other people that I know.
Oh, absolutely, and it's greatly
Oh, okay.
appreciated, yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of them are very independent. And so like Shannon said, even if you just offered it to everybody that walked in. And a lot of people won't admit they have a disability or they don't even know they have one. Okay, so if it's offered, then it's up to them. It's their choice if they want to use this. At least let them know that it's available. And I know that it was advertised, but I could probably say 75% of people really didn't know. They really didn't know it was available. I know it was available.
Yeah, if you can't read for whatever reason, either a visual disability or a learning disability,
Exactly.
you just
Yeah.
can't read. There was really no other way to find out about it.
Yeah,
I think we can always do a better job. And so it's important to know this feedback and, you know, and we'll learn from that and we can do better next time.
mhm.
And hopefully there won't be, we can do better next time and next time and next time. Hopefully we will, you know, some point we'll get it right.
Well, we go places and we assume that it's going to be the same as it was last year or the year before. There's no changes, we just don't expect it anymore.
That's true. That's true.
I think it's come a long way.
Oh, well, it
In
has.
years it
It
has.
has.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I know
but-
what you're saying. Yeah, yeah,
But I have to say that I'm really impressed
yeah.
with you ladies and that you're listening to and you're acting on it. So I'm very impressed and very pleased.
Thank you.
And me too, when I went to vote, and it was actually these guys that helped me, because I'm the one that said about the color behind the sky.
We did make the change, we did have the yellow on every time.
These guys were great with me.
We went on water from, you got a whole bunch of, like, yeah.
That's what we need, right? You don't know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, but right now,
Like now, my
Because you know she told my truth.
I did, yeah, I did. No, I appreciate that, no, it was really,
it was a really great, it was, I mean, personally, it was a really great learning experience. We were really excited for everything. I mean, just for the election in general too, like, I mean, we're adding new, exciting, technology tools, but it's your first election. It's my first election in the clerk's office, and it's, it was to me, it was a huge success, and being part of this was something else.
I see.
Yeah, I was really proud to be able to see that happen and be part of it, and look forward to just, like you said, making improvements going forward and trying to, you know, get more options and look at things so that we get even better in 2026.
Right. He didn't need the assistance, which is interesting because it's different from the provincial election.
Mhm.
And he has like some motor planning. So I think that's something that we can add to, and then of course, like I need help, but like I'm getting out of here. So I got like, so someone help someone, like I can't help you because I'm on.
Well,
Be a little problem.
That would,
Yeah, no problem. So, one of the, officers, helped him, but he was confused because in the provincial, it was just an X in the circle. So he was confused by,
The instructions of.
yeah.
And we did look at some of that to see what kind of things we could make a bit more consistent, even just voting locations, like outside of
Yeah.
accessibility, but just even like, are there ways that we can make things more consistent so that, we looked at the list of voting locations from the province and the federal government as well, to say, okay, where did people go and vote, and those types of things, just to try to make it as seamless as possible, so people weren't going, oh, I went to here to vote in June, and now I'm going to this school, and now I'm going to this school, but like, we wanted to try to do
Yeah.
things like that. It wasn't always possible. I won't say it was, the fact, but it's definitely something we looked at. So maybe just looking at really in other elections.
I should point out as well that we did do accessibility training for all of our external employees, for our city staff. workers, we gave a quick overview because they already have that training as part of employment. But for anybody out in the field, they have mandatory accessibility training so that they could offer proper customer service and
No, it was great.
be aware.
It was great. Yeah. I think we really emphasized how may I help you, right? That was one thing, ask a question rather than point to
Make assumptions.
assumptions to just say, and I think, I use the example, I always said this, we had accessibility training in the provincial level network as well, and it really came in useful for when I worked as a ballot officer, DRO, they would call it the provincial election. And we had a person come in and was having difficulty getting to my table. And I knew I could see them coming, and they stopped at the computer's desk and sat down. And I just went over and said, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And she said, "Yeah, I just having trouble, getting to the location." I said, "Would you like me to do anything? Would you like me to bring the screen over to you?" And she said, "That would be great." And I said, "Okay." So I always use that example with our employees as well to say, she may have said, "No, I just need a minute to rest. I'm okay, I'll let you know." And I could have walked away. Or she was really grateful that I could bring that over to her. She still voted in privacy and secrecy. I helped facilitate and just asked her what she would like me to do for her, and just respected whatever the decision was. And I think for me, relaying those messages, just how can I help you? And I'll respect whatever, whatever. I was using it to say, hey, you just might need a rest, and that's okay too. And I'll just let me know if you need what you need. Yeah, what do you need, right? So we really reinforce that message to all of our external election workers to try to be mindful of that for everybody, right? Like you're saying, but maybe for advanced voting in particular, we need to be a bit more pointed the tools and options we have available.
The gal that I had, when I went to get my card, and it was a dance. And so I went to her little booth or whatever, and then she handed me everything, and she, "Go over there and vote."
Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry about that. And we are looking at options for setup as well for advance, because we did have so much new technology with computers and everything else that we needed extra tables and, kind of had everything set up. So, we took back some feedback on the flow of the room as well for future.
To be able to tell which table you needed to go to.
Yeah, so, but I will keep that in mind
I just got a chuckle out of it, and I thought, okay, which one will I go to? And then I rearranged everything so I could fix it up.
Excellent.
We'll do some more training there next time.
Yeah. It would have been nice. We had thought at the beginning that like go to the shortest line, right?
Yeah.
But that would mean that each ballot officer had 15 ballots to choose from because you've got English, public, English, separate, and no school support for 5 wards. And I was like, what are the chances that people are going to get the right ballot?
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of logistics to try and balance.
Yeah.
And it's good to have these discussions to just sort of walk through how it would be.
Right, and afterwards, not so much in the moment.
Exactly.
Where there's so much going on, but afterwards, when the dust has settled a little bit, you've got time.
And you can
to
see where your
process.
gaps.
We did try to have the ladies in before the election for the demonstration, but the day of our meeting was an advanced polling day.
yes,
I think that was
yes,
the very
that's
first
what I recall
advanced
now.
poll.
Go on a field trip.
Yeah.
Um,
So again, we can do this better, and we can do it better in 4 years.
And we will.
Yes, we will do it better in 4 years. And we'll have a little bit more time. We had a little bit of lag in between when Nancy retired and when I started as well. So there was a little bit of a gap.
We had a bit of a
there,
squeeze.
a little bit. But we will definitely do a better job. I have got other feedback that I'll provide to you ladies afterwards. Some people submitted some written feedback. So I'll forward that as well.
And I did want to just acknowledge Gabrielle and her efforts to reach out to our local service providers and the people that they serve as well. She did a phenomenal job of really making those connections and trying to get the communication out there and get the communication for the people served in those organizations so that they can communicate as well, because we don't necessarily have all those contacts So I just wanted to make that mention for Gabrielle, because she was our lead point on reaching out and getting those contacts for those external organizations. So it was a really great thing to have available.
And I think too, in 2026, before reaching out, I can, or whoever's in the position can maybe even reach out here first and say, do you have any recommendations on further contacts, or, some people retire?
Right.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There's been a lot
Because
of-
this year was just challenging because of the changeover. But I think in 2026, that would be great too.
Yeah, and some of the locations of the head offices of.
Yeah, that was a big, I did,
So-
I had a bit of trouble with that, with CNID no longer having a local office and Canadian hearing. Like I was speaking to people in Ottawa, like
Right.
Northern Ontario, just a different
It
situation, right?
It is. I think we lost quite a few offices over the last 2.5-ish years.
Yeah.
Head offices.
Head offices.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, so we were able to make contact with
Sudbury,
Sudbury
made
and
contact
those
with
groups,
CNID.
so that was good. So we were able to get that information.
You could get a hold of VLR here also.
Yeah, vision loss, yeah, I contacted Caitlin.
Okay. Yeah, but for anyone that's watching this video, because it's going to be posted on the website, if they don't know how to get a hold of our clerk's office, they're welcome to send feedback to me, which I'll then be happy to pass along as well. So anyone else in the community that you know of that has feedback, please encourage them to send the feedback.
And we'll be including that in our report to, we've got a statutory obligation to report to council post-election, so we'll incorporate that.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
thanks for putting us up first to accommodate us. Just some things that I wanted to, I don't know how aware the committee is, because in your sort of transition, I don't know what's been brought up, but we have been tasked with having a look at the taxi bylaw and reworking it so that it, I think what it's going to result in is being administered through the city as opposed to being administered through police. And what I want to do is have a meeting with the operators and Ray Magnan, who's with City Police, who's been responsible for it. And I was hoping that you'd be available to attend that, and we're just gonna have a round table initially to talk about
Where things are at.
issues, challenges, and then from there we'll launch into our suggestions for amendments. So I'll be getting in touch with you for that.
Wonderful.
And board and committee appointments are open. So you can apply on the website.
We did have some feedback from Diane as well about the requirement for resumes. And I just wanted to update the committee that we've reached out to the vendor and put a service request in to have the requirement removed. And as soon as I get confirmation that that's done, I'll pass it along to update. And we appreciate any other feedback you have for the process. It's the first time we've launched on through this new tool. It certainly has had some bumps along the way that we're working through, and we do hope at some point in time to have it nice and seamless. However, if there's any feedback on that, I appreciate that. We reach out to the vendor, they're accommodating it. Some things are taking it's a bit more IT, the changes require more IT
Intervention.
That can't just be done immediately, but certainly if there's any feedback that we can get done right away, we will. And if not for the next launch of this tool, then certainly we'd be happy to try to work with that. So I appreciate the feedback. We put in a request immediately and are working on it. So.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Looks like it's not pouring buckets out there right now.
Run quickly.
Yeah.
Good machine here.
Yeah.
It's like a Nintendo machine. It's like-
Doesn't it?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it does.
I'm
Yeah.
going to grab it from right now, right
Yeah.
now.
earlier. this month.
I just want to know if it needs to be going.
Quarter to three, Ann.
Pardon me?
Quarter to three.
Okay.
I don't watch. I don't do that because it's hard.
Yeah.
I know.
I was surprised.
Every time we put a clock on this wall, it dies in about 6 months, and it's not the batteries. You can change the batteries, the clock is dead, so it's gonna go on this wall now. Yeah.
Cool. You can have that one for the council chambers, but I think, it looks like it belongs in an arena.
It does.
We'll get a new one.
Yes.
Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Have a good rest of your
Thank you.
day.
Is anybody in need of a break?
All right.
Hopefully it should go quick because we can't make any voting anyways. Okay, so I guess we're moving on to new business. Community developments, the letter of support for Point to Shane.
Yes. So I did write a letter, and thank you very much, everybody, to who was able to vote by email that that we would be providing this letter. So I drafted a letter and sent it over to Shannon. I included it in with the meeting materials, so if you've had a chance to read it, that is the letter that's gone off, and let's keep our fingers crossed for a successful application for Point de Shane. That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So our next is AAC feedback on location of additional benches.
Yes. So I've got a few, you'll see a few items on the agenda that I'd like to keep as standing items that every meeting they are there. And if there is no feedback or nothing to be said about the item, that's fine. We can go over it very, very quickly. But AAC feedback on the location of additional seating benches. So through the accessibility committee's barrier removal budget, there's been an annual allotment of $10,000 to be able to put in benches along seating, along trails and paths, sidewalks, places where people are frequently walking through. I thought of the hub trail. I think we talked about this last year, that there are no benches along the hub trail. So anybody that has any kind of endurance types of disabilities, they have a hard time enjoying the hub trail because there aren't places for them to rest. So having brought that forward, that was incorporated into the accessibility plan. And the $10,000 has been allotted for benches. I think one is going to go in front of the Northern Community Center, another one at the GFL Memorial Gardens. There's one bench there. There's going to be a second bench because there is a need for it. And I think we get 6 benches for the $10,000. They have backrests and they have arm rests so that people with hips or knee issues or back issues can help themselves to get up. So I think they're fairly accessible. If anyone has feedback on the design of what's out there and the placement, we'd love to hear feedback from you. So that will be a standing item. So if you hear anything when you're out, please bring it back, okay?
There are benches by the library. If you're thinking sidewalk, all that trail system. And there are some by the old hospitals, but going from, say, Simpson to Pine, I don't think there's any.
None.
'Cause
Carol,
I walk, that's my neighborhood.
Okay.
So let's say from Simpson to Churchill Boulevard, that's where the crosswalk is. Peter?
My apologies.
No problem.
I don't think there's, like, like, there's the bus stop, and it has like a shelter,
Right.
but I don't think there's any, so the trail that takes you right in front of the, Forestry Research Center, and then, like, so that is part of, on that side, right, part of Hub Trail. And then goes past, like, all the way, and then it curves down by the old farmhouse. So
Right.
along all of that, so let's say from Simpson to Churchill Boulevard on Queen, I don't think we're in.
Okay.
I'll ask the dog, he might.
He probably knows where everyone is.
Yeah.
He probably is, but yeah, no, other than the bus shelter, I don't think there's any.
Okay.
And a lot of like, there's a lot of people that use that part of the trail, because it connects you right from into the Bellevue Park one, and then, or if you're going like then down towards the water.
Right,
Yeah,
it's a busy area.
it is a busy area, yeah.
Okay. Good feedback. Anyone else?
Would this be benches just on the Hub Trail or anywhere in the city?
Anywhere in the city, as long as it's a city-owned property.
Okay. From the finished rest home to, let's say, Walmart, there's not one bench. So you do get seniors walking to Walmart, and there's no place for them to sit anywhere along that stretch.
All in front of like the QC building, police are outside the line.
Yeah, there's not a single place for them to sit. Also from Pathways to the Wellington Square Mall, there's no benches. Not one. From Great Northern Road. From, and I'm just going by like, because there were senior buildings and shopping centers and everything, okay? So from McDonald all the way to Walmart, or actually all the way to the hospital, because I even walked to the hospital, there's not one bench. That whole stretch, not one bench.
Right. I'll just tell you, there may be some restrictions on some of that between city property and then private property. But where there is some allowances, we will certainly identify that as some needs there. So keep going, keep going. You want to tell me all, so you said McDonald to,
All the way to the hospital.
okay.
And actually, from the entire Lucanda Drive, from the highway to the hospital, there's no benches.
That would be hospital property.
That would be hospital, the whole Lucanda Drive. Okay, so a lot of people, since they're taking the bus going all around. they
Yeah,
get
that's
around.
private.
That's private.
That can be suggested though to the Sioux Area Hospital Accessibility Committee.
Okay,
That could be valuable.
okay.
Um,
And then,
And if you think of any others, I mean, now I can take the notes, or if you think of others in your travels, Carol, I know you're a busy pedestrian.
well, what Lisa, now, one of my things was what Lisa had said, okay? Right from the old hospital all the way to Bellevue Park. But that's what the
Yeah.
area you're talking about. There's no benches.
Yeah.
It's my daily walk.
Yeah,
Or Aiden, you always see Aiden, know what the road about.
I think there'd absolutely be room on that stretch.
I think so too.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's the hub trail. It's probably pretty tight
There's some of the,
between Pine and the Sioux area hospitals, because some of those homes are close, but once you get in front of the Bug Lab,
yeah.
they're dating this whole thing time. But
I see
the
it too.
federal and the
Yeah.
provincial forest research buildings, there's definitely space in there to do it.
and that's a beautiful walk there with that trail there.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful, but there's no place to sit.
a beautiful walk.
I think there's a couple of benches around the Bush Plain Museum, right?
There are.
On the waterfront area, there's
Yeah.
a couple.
And there's some like in front of
That's
like the old general hospital, which is. Because people fish there,
Right,
and there are some benches there.
right, right.
Yeah,
Very well used.
I'm like, did I agree that? No, they
No, it's a
are.
bit of a sleeper spot. I
Yeah, I
think,
know.
but people hang out there.
Yes and no.
Right.
So next is another standing item on bus stops and shelters feedback.
Yeah, that's more of a transit feedback item, but certainly through the AAC can be filtered to transit. That there is supposed to be feedback on bus stops and shelters. So accessibility of bus stops and the need for shelters as well. So that is something that, you know, we need to have feedback. Please keep your ears open in the community and let us know where the need is, and that can be passed on to transit.
Don't have Derek here today, that's one of his favorite things.
Awesome, awesome. He gets everywhere too, so it's perfect.
Shelter across from Food Basics on Pine Street.
It's on the wrong side of the road.
I've been talking about this for
Yeah.
2 years. And if they don't want to move it,
I was feeling,
okay.
she just felt like she just like didn't even look at
And
like.
they're trying to figure out the solution for it, and I figured it out. I think I figured it out. They don't want to move it 50 feet over into that big grass area right across from Food Basics, between 690 Pine and 700 Pine, that horseshoe, which would be the perfect spot for it, but if they don't want to do that, take the bus shelter, turn it around, okay, like they have on Queen Street, and have the entrance on the other side, and put a cement pad going around to the road, okay, because the way it is now, the entrance, you take one step in, and in the wintertime, it's like a little slope, and you'll fall right into that road. So this way here, you're going out the back of the shelter, walking around the shelter to the road, and you're safe if they put a cement pad around it. And the entrance on the back.
Yeah, but the issue is people just cross the street, they don't go to the light. Like they just cross, like I said, I was listening to the other day, like they just, that's the other safety issue.
That was probably me.
I didn't even,
I know.
like they don't even,
They don't even look.
they don't even look.
That
I mean,
was,
especially if you're going around the corner.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
they need a sidewalk on that side.
We identified that as like a real structural issue that I think goes far beyond just moving something, like it's,
mhm.
people are getting off the bus at that spot. Like you said, you're supposed to walk down and around.
They don't.
Nobody's gonna do that, right?
Nobody
Like,
does.
it's easy for a car to go 200 meters out of their way, but for a pedestrian, you're gonna take the most direct.
Yeah.
We're all gonna do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we haven't identified a solution at this point in terms of to do it right so that it's, you know, it's almost a bus route issue, right? Where the bus needs to be southbound so that when people are getting on and getting off. And there is a southbound bus, but it's just not the path, it's not where people are coming from. It's a challenge.
It would be great, like with the transfer station at Sioux College, if the bus actually went into that parking lot and there was like a stop.
Come on Allard,
Mm,
maybe.
mm.
They need a sidewalk on that east side of Pine Street.
That's the problem.
There's no-
West.
There's no
No, east,
sidewalk.
you're right, yes.
East side.
Yeah.
Because you got schools there, you got all those houses, apartment buildings, shopping centers, Tim Hortons, but if you live on the east side of Pine, you can't get there. In fact, in the wintertime, the mailman refuses to deliver mail down that stretch because it is not safe. So anybody during the winter months, if they have to get mail, they get their key and they have to walk all the way to Willoughby, I think, Willoughby, to get their mail in the wintertime. Now, once the snow's melted, then the mailman will go back and deliver their mail all winter long. Okay, now, I want to walk on that side of the street. I have to go to the corner of McNabb and Pine, and they say, well, just cross the street and walk along the road. Okay. In the wintertime, sure, I'll do that, no problem. My white cane, and as I'm walking along that curve there, avoiding all the slush hills, and you know how I used to drive, so I know what it's like when that slush gets in little ruts and stuff like that. And people are honking at you, and if you have a wheelchair, you might as well forget about it. Okay, and same in the summertime. wheelchair, you can't go on that little path that's been there for so many years, that's packed down, but it's only about 2 feet wide, this guy still have to go on the road, whether it's winter or summertime. And me, I try to go down that path, but then you got all these poles and stuff you're bumping into. And if the mailman and the Canada Post is not gonna jeopardize the safety of their mailman, then the city needs to stop jeopardizing the safety of the people that live in Sault Ste. Marie. There are hundreds of people that cross there. And then you cross in the middle of the road because you can't get down to the lights. What are you supposed to do? Hopefully the cars will stop for you and you make it across that street. Someday, somebody's gonna get hurt there very bad. Someday you wait. And when St. Bernadette School was open, they used to have a crossing guard right there. And that's how people used to cross, was through the crossing guard, right up through Basics there. Okay, something needs to be done about that sidewalk. That sidewalk has to be put in. That's one of the busiest roads in town. You got the ambulances going down there, the fire department going down there, there's sirens. And then if there's construction, then you got even more cars going down. I go down that street almost every day.
I live down there and you're absolutely right.
Frightening.
Yeah, and the construction that's been on there lately has been confusing and ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a discussion item.
That we started out at bus shelters and we ended up at a sidewalk, but it's good.
It's good. It's definitely an accessibility concern. You know, anybody with a disability, there's additional challenges. But it is a challenge for almost everybody, any pedestrian, right? So I'm not sure what or where that's gonna go, but we'll chat about it.
It would have to
And
be
we'll
a
see.
a resolution that could go forth to council to look at, just like Luke and I got the sidewalk going by the Lower Pine. So we could start there.
Yeah, Steve Turples also sent him an email, because
Send Steve an email.
now, as they speak, they're looking, we're doing the active transportation master plan. And as we speak, they're working through trouble areas. I'm fairly certain we've internally talked about this, well, Pine Street, basically from McNabb all the way up to Willow, am I saying that right?
Northern,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Northern,
yeah.
Northern, yeah, Willow's the other way.
Yeah.
And just make sure that that's, send them an email and CC them. I'll make
Because it might
sure
not
it's on
need to be,
radar
if they're already in
as
the
a
plan,
trouble
it
spot.
doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, you want to get that identified in the plan. I think
Mhm.
that's probably one of the worst trouble spots.
Yeah. It's a good job bringing it forward.
Mhm.
Yes, any other
Couple years.
bus stops and shelters feedback, please let me know and we'll pass it on to transit. So I've got a list, all my scribble notes, I'll have to go and interpret that after.
Okay, so next one is just a reminder that Diane sent out the link for us to reapply for the committee.
And please feel free to share that link to anyone in the community that you think would like to apply to be on the committee.
I have it on my LinkedIn.
Good,
And I'm going to apply to that one.
excellent,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, I like the desserts.
Great coffee too, some of the best coffee.
I brought tea today, it was like, it was freezing, I was like, oh.
I'll admit too that I was very happy that Diane was able to offer me hot chocolate when I got here.
Oh,
I'm not a coffee drinker and I was cold.
Yeah.
Okay, so old business, video remote interpreting, it says on hold, pending restarting program in the new year.
Yes, so we've got a standing budget line for that. Once it's available, we'll have to figure out where it's going to be rolled out to. It's something that we would need iPads at customer service areas so that, you know, people who are deaf and need ASL interpreting can get this on demand interpreting, which is
It's
amazing.
amazing.
So as soon as that's available, we'll be rolling that out.
Next one is the pool lift replacement. We talked about it at the last meeting, and unfortunately, again, we don't have quorum, but it says, motion from committee is required for a purchase. And it says we have, it's, $15,355.99 is the same, to get the same lift.
Yes. Yes. So I don't know about process, but I assume because we were able to do a vote by email for a motion for the letter, because we need a motion from the committee in order to use these funds, because this was not something that was in the plan. We're taking other amounts from within this year's funds that were not spent, like the amount for the video remote interpreting, which was, I think, 5,000, and there was 10,000 that was not used for, I think it was the, it was the accessible pedestrian signals, because they already have quite a few of those in stock, so they didn't need an additional amount to go over and above this year. So those two amounts by themselves pretty much cover this. So I will send out an email to everybody and asking for the vote. I'll explain a little bit about the pool lift and why it's required, and about this, and we'll do a vote by email so we can get this done sooner than later.
Okay, and the next one is similar thing, enable table accessibility purchase. And again, you need a motion from the committee for purchase.
Yeah, so what this is, there was a video link, I think. I don't know if I included.
You sent it to me.
Everybody, okay, good, good. So there is a link to the enable table option. This is a project that has been on the table for accessibility for a very long time, was having more accessible tables. Like Madison and Rachel and Gabrielle said, having a higher table for someone that uses a power chair and may sit higher, being able to get underneath and feel like you're included in what's going on rather than having to sit back from the table. So I had seen these tables at Sioux Area Hospital in the patient dining rooms, and I thought they're brilliant. You can get high-low tables electric. They're very expensive, but you've also got cords, and then you've got risk of them wearing out and failure over time. So replacement costs. This is a manual adjustment that can be raised high. I think it's up to 12 inches higher than an existing table, and something like another 8 inches or so below a table. So it would fit a great variety of people's seating heights. So I'd like to get one for one of the tables in the accessibility office here as a trial. And if it works well, I'd love to be able to have those as well at City Hall, one installed in every meeting room at City Hall.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll also send out that motion as well. That comes in at our better cost on that was almost $900 for an addition.
That's not bad.
Do they come in different sizes?
They do not.
What is the size?
They're about 12 inches deep, maybe a little bit more, maybe 14 inches deep, by is it 3 feet or 3 feet, I believe,
Okay,
36 inches.
okay.
But it says even on the end or on the long part, you can lower
Yes.
both ends. Yeah.
Yes, yes. On the one that's on the, that was in the video, yes, they've got it on both sides of the tables, whereas for meeting space, I would just have it on the one side. And what we would do is, it wouldn't work so well on these curvy tables, but I would replace one of our curved edge tables with this, this straight edge table that we have over here. We can just swap the two tables out, and then we've got a good surface for that. So I'll send that out in the mail as well.
Yeah, I like the idea of IM1 to test it out here, and then once we have it here, we can sort of try and figure out how we can integrate them into potential meeting rooms, right? Because you don't want the table in the back corner. Like you want to be able to integrate it into the existing
100%.
tables, right? So,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
always part of,
Yeah.
of any meeting that's going on, should anyone need it.
So just for done here, we're on to barrier removal updates, barrier-free parking violations. And it just says private property is any private businesses that have contracted a security company to enforce parking.
Yeah. There was a question on, because I had asked for a breakdown on where the accessible parking violations were. And I think there was one line that said, private. And it was like, well, what does that mean? So I just asked for clarification. That's what it means. There are some lots, some private lots that requested Norco to go in and do some enforcement. So, that's what those were.
it'd be nice to know maybe where some of those are, because if we're seeing hot spots, it might also be that they don't have the signage correctly, or, they're not keeping up on painting lines, and maybe people just might not know potentially. That might be something worth, and then we can go out and sort of see and enforce that too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they know exactly where the spot is, if the ticket shows that.
Or would they move a lot, at least, and then we can check, or the
They would
address
have a
maybe,
location.
Maybe the address.
like
would
maybe
have
an
it.
address.
Yes,
Right, like I think the ticket would have to have that on it, I imagine.
Should.
Yeah,
I think one of the places was at the station mall, wasn't it? Right on the corner of Elgin and on Bay, where Sears,
it might be, that would be in our minutes, which I don't have a copy of here. I didn't print a copy, so, if you don't mind, chat for a minute, I'll go take a look, see exactly where the locations were.
just remember reading something. And all the old LG and all those businesses there, people were parking there. And I think they were gonna get ticketed, and I went by there the other day, there was no cars there, so I'm just assuming that that was where it was at the station.
The station mall is not allowing,
the new owner.
they're not allowing any parking
Oh, that's what it
unless
is.
you're there to shop.
Oh, okay. And then the Greyhound games?
You're not parking there.
Are they enforcing that too?
I believe so. We'll find out.
How? Yeah, I wonder how they figure that one out.
I'll get phone calls.
Yeah, yeah. I just know like the lot across on Spring, like it's more full now than it's ever been, and
Yeah.
I mean, all G is still not all back to work, right? So they're,
No.
and even when before the pandemic, that lot was never as full as it is now,
No.
so it's gotta be people are getting dinged.
Well, in Station Tower, you used to be able to park and they paid, well, it was all.
They had
the same.
contracts,
They had
yeah.
contracts.
And I think Delta was the same.
Yeah,
Maybe they're still, I don't know if they're still doing it.
I know.
You can enter a contract to pay
Yeah.
them too.
So the hockey game, then if they're not allowed to park at the station mall, what about the handicap parking spots? Is there enough of them in the parking lot
No.
for the gardens itself, or? Really?
I go to a few games, and I think I've gotten those spots once. They fill, I know people go like 2 hours before the game to get one, go for dinner first.
So I agree, I've brought that forward a few times, that,
Yeah.
there isn't enough accessible parking at our gardens. And my thought is that anyone that requires an accessible parking place should be able to get one at the gardens. Anyone else, if they have to park at the bus terminal, or they have to park on the street around the corner, down the way, they're physically able to still get to the game, but someone with a disability may not be able to go.
Is there a way of figuring out what that number might be? I know that's tough. There's not enough now, so, I mean, because it's a city-owned lot, and there's just, there's people are having to park wherever, so getting rid of it, like, has anyone ever approached the city to suggest, can we remove some parking spaces and add more barrier-free spaces, because we feel there's a real need for it. Has that ever happened? Has there ever been that asked?
There was one ask where a couple of more spaces, I don't know if it's 3 or maybe 4, were added by the side door, where you go in, where it's more level entrance in. I know that was added. It's still not enough.
Yeah.
I know that one time I went and some of the spots were, they had taken the cone from somewhere and put it at that parking spot for when they were coming later.
Oh.
Yeah. So you'd thought, well, the cone is there, so maybe there's something wrong with the parking spot. But it was people that were taking the cone, putting it there and then moving it when they arrived.
That's nerdy.
Have they repainted those spots yet, or are they still those big old spots?
Could
I
there
haven't
be
been down there for this
I'll
season.
take a look.
portable? Like, this is just, I don't know.
That sounds
Like that, okay, when there was very hungry, so we're gonna put
Yeah, I'll take a look.
8 extra.
We could, but I'm not sure it solves anything more than just adding, say, another 8 or another 12 or
Yeah.
whatever that number is.
Well, you can start small and then potentially, try it out for a season. And then eventually you're gonna hit that magic number, right? That's another option too.
People have, it's gonna be an ongoing issue, so no matter how many spots you have, there's gonna be so many people.
There
still
could
do that.
be potential for more. So what would the
Yeah.
committee suggest might be an appropriate number to request to be added? Are we talking 4, are we talking 6? We're talking 8, what is it?
I have no idea what that is.
I think it's the whole front line. Along Queen Street sidewalk, all those parking spots. I don't know how many there are, but they probably need that many.
Because it's in the downtown and they were demolishing and building new, there was no minimum zoning parking requirement. Well, there was, but it was reduced. And our bylaw, and we'll talk, like, we are gonna go through some parking reforms and significantly reduce our minimums, but we're gonna have other minimums that would apply to barrier-free parking. So I'll explain that once, probably at the next meeting in the new year, but I can find out, like, if the GFL was built on second line, I can, based on the rated capacity, we can find out how many parking spaces they would require. And then sort of use that as a guideline. And say, in spite of it being downtown, this is how many parking spaces they would require, and therefore this is how many barrier-free spaces there would be, and this is how many you have, and we can try to work towards that number. I would suggest, I think it'd be Brent Lanning that we would start that conversation with.
Yeah.
And see, like, I don't know how often we're, because it's just a matter of repainting lines.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about here. And we've always been careful to make sure that 2 parking spaces, like 2 barrier-free plus the aisle, we designed it so it fits into 3 regular spaces, so you're not messing up your geometry of your rows. We'll do that analysis as a starting point, and then maybe we can try to work our way up. And see, next time they're repainting the lines, they can add more. We have the ability to do that.
Okay. All right, so we'll leave that as an item that will review what's there and what
Yeah.
the need might be and try to come up with something.
For improvements, so it looks like it'd be 10, 11.
Oh, so they have repainted them, so
Oh,
it's not the
4 years
old.
ago. That says 4 years.
Okay, good.
So I'm just kind of like head of from that, so.
Okay.
Because that was the first use that used the big, remember the big gigantic
Yes.
spaces, and people were double parking. because they didn't Get what was going on.
Yeah. All right, I took from the last minutes, Sioux Area Hospital had 50 parking infractions. Downtown parking lots were 19. Private lots were 4, so it's not a high occurrence, but it happens. Airport was 3, and the Cambrian Mall was 2. And so this time, and I don't know what that titled, so, oh, it was 78 previously. And then there was only one additional ticket issued in October. I didn't ask what place that was in, but it's only one additional. So we may need to also review how that's being done, because we know the infractions are ridiculous. Every day when I leave here, there's somebody parked inappropriately in the accessible parking here. So it's still not quite where it needs to be. But I think it's time, you know, that we review how that's being done. Is it working as a deterrent? Hopefully people are actually paying these fines, not getting them tossed out, because if they're parked inappropriately, they should be paying the fine. It's a pretty powerful disincentive. So,
I know at Cambrian Mall, I park at the back sometimes, and they've got quite a few accessible parking spots at the back. And it's always full with people for coffee or whatever. And I just, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I can't see it all being disabled people.
right. So we're pretty sure there's some violations going on there.
And plus there was a little scooter that was in the middle of a great big huge parking spot
That's bad, maintenance.
in the back, yeah. You
So
know,
those are all,
there's quite a big section of accessible parking.
I walk down there every day and I never even knew.
That's near
that
the
was-
food court.
Yes.
The food
Yeah,
court.
Yeah, I didn't know that was accessible. Is there
Yeah.
signs there?
Back.
When I used to
Yeah.
drive, I used to park back there.
Corner rolls in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I like
And you would go in the
parking
food
back
court
there.
after? That's where you would go?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I believe so.
You can walk right into the group health center's parking lot, right there.
Yeah, I guess you could, yeah,
There's a little guardrail.
right.
I did not know that was, handicap parking.
Well, maybe when you were driving, it wasn't.
So it looks like Sioux Area Hospital and the downtown. I suspect like Sioux Area, they're on their parking, right? I think
Yeah.
that would make sense. So it's partly because they're on it, but people are just taking a booth through that walk to make sure that everything's in order. I think,
At the Sioux Area Hospital.
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely
I'm
is.
certain it is.
Yeah, they recently
Okay.
updated them.
So it's because they're just on it. So that's how many people.
Well,
That's
yeah,
probably a truer picture. Like granted, it's a huge parking lot, high volume, but that's probably a truer picture. And then same with their downtown. I think we're on that as well.
Yeah, I think a little bit more, but just to be
Yeah.
clear too, that's not over the course of 1 month. That's like this year,
This year.
this calendar year so far. So yes, definitely the Sioux Area Hospital and the downtown parking lots have more, but even in the downtown parking lots, over the course of almost 11 months now, there's got to be more than 19, infractions. But it's a matter of, okay, we've given this a try, let's review it, how can we do it better? What's working, what's not, what do we do next? So we need to figure that out.
That YouTube video I sent you, that hit home with me. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I remember that one.
It was
And-
a place in Europe that had put together this, I think it was because it was subtitles. I don't know.
Yes, yeah.
Eastern Europe, or it was a little bit racy, but it really hit home as to.
Yeah, there are some really good kind of public service videos
That's what it was, yeah,
out there.
yeah.
And that was really creative how they had done that. We've also had the one, I think that was made in Quebec about, what was that called? Just parking for just a minute or
Yes,
something like that. Really highly impactful. And so I think the people that know that's what's really at risk, but the people that don't know, just don't know.
Do we have the ability to, and I know it's not perfect, but do we have the ability to track this over time? And are we, like, I would imagine the hospital would be a really good example because they're on it. I know that enforcement kind of comes and goes and priorities change, but is this something we can put into a spreadsheet, you think, and track over time and try to get a sense, like, where are we trending with this?
Meaning like time of year or time of
Just
day or.
overall, like in
I'm
2018,
sure
there was
we-
X number of infractions, and I think the hospital would be a good sort of litmus test, if you will, because we know that they're on it. We know that parking is a priority for them and we
Yeah.
know they've got people that's full-time what they do.
Yeah,
And it'd be interesting just to see like, how are we trending with the infractions?
right, right.
Do we need to do something? I think we all know we need to do something, but you know, if it's getting worse, then we really, really need to do something. If it's, you know, and maybe spend some more money on it, whereas if it's trending down, then, you know, you can try to get a sense of measuring it, right?
Right,
And
is
you
it
can-
working?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I agree, I think that would be great, and I think that's the idea of having this as a standing item, so
Yeah.
that every month the committee knows what's going on with these, and that there was one parking ticket issued in the past month. You know, it isn't a lot.
Yeah. I would imagine around Christmas, it's awful.
Yes.
Parking lots are full, and the weather's not good, and maybe I wonder if it'd be worth it if we could track it monthly on a spreadsheet, and then you could sort of get a better understanding of the issue and what's happening,
That would be great.
knowing that we're not catching everybody, right?
Yeah.
My daughter-in-law is ushers at the Kiwanis at White Pines. And so she watched a young girl, a new usher, and she drove her big truck into the accessible parking spot and jumped out and ran into the building. And Melissa saw all of this and she trailed and went and talked to the supervisor and said, "You see that new usher? She did."
Yeah.
Out she went to move her truck.
Yeah, good, good. And yeah, sometimes we have to call people on that. It can be very difficult at times to confront someone, because people get very defensive. And they can get aggressive and I've seen that happen before as well. But where it's a good idea like that, you know, she handled it very well.
See, my concern with that is, and I've seen it happen, and I've made the conscious decision not to confront them because you don't know.
Right.
That's right.
Now granted, I guess they're supposed to display the tag, that's not really one way to do it. But
Yeah.
just, I don't know enough to know whether just because it doesn't look like they need the spot, doesn't mean they don't need the
Well,
spot.
no, and that's
Right.
true. But she, my daughter-in-law just, no, that's not gonna work, so.
Yeah, good plan. All right, so we'll do that. We'll take a look at that and we'll see what that looks like over time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So next one is just another standing item, if anybody has any challenges with accessible taxis.
And I think there are lots.
That would be private meeting.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So Madison is, I think actually there's something else going on with the barrier free parking as well, with clerk's office, but I couldn't remember that earlier when they spoke about the taxis, going through the city for an enforcement piece rather than, the police. So, we'll see, I'll ask if there's something going on with the accessible taxis. We'll see where that goes.
Okay, discussion about the display screen in the office.
Yeah, this was an item that I added to the agenda, just as a discussion. Because as I said, when we first came in for the meeting, there was an emergency, had to have the projector replaced. And so it was suggested that we may be able to use like a 72-inch television, because these projectors are not as common. It's not the current technology. And it's a bit of a dying technology, but so it was suggested maybe a 72-inch television, which is not as big as our current screen, but not by a huge amount. So I guess I'm looking for input from the committee on whether that would work for accessibility purposes.
And it wouldn't come out of the barrier removal fund. This would be just up to City Hall office expenses budget.
Right, right.
And it's Black Friday coming up, so. Good deal on TV.
You got that?
Yeah,
Well, it just makes sense because these are a pain.
but 72-inch, I think you're trading a little bit of size for probably more resolution and more clarity, right? I think is that it would be a bit smaller, but I'm thinking clearer.
I think so too. And I guess I'm looking to you, Carol, your feedback. Do you use the visual, if there were any kind of graphics going on? Would you be able to see it, whether it's currently on the screen or whether it were on a television?
What I see right now, I can see the white, the gray, the black, I can see shapes. I really can't make out exactly what it is,
Okay,
but let's say it was a little bit smaller but clearer,
right,
okay? Probably if I went up to it, I probably might be able to see it a little bit clearer, but I really, I don't really rely on it. So I think more it would be for everybody else's decision.
okay.
Okay. If I really needed to, I probably would be better off with my phone. At least I can put it right here
And see it as large as you need it, as clear, yeah, okay. I might check in with Derek, because I understand Derek also has some visual challenges, so I might check in with him on that and see if that affects how he's able to participate in meetings. But it sounds like that might be a good option. So, okay, thank you for that feedback.
And last one is the site plan.
Yes, I apologize for sending it out as the chair of the site plan subcommittee, because I'm not anymore. But the only thing that went out or that came in was a rezoning, and it's a residential building that's just looking to legitimize their existing units within the building. So there's no implications for accessibility on that, so I didn't call a committee meeting. But I thought it important to let you know something came in.
Maybe so. Guess unless anybody else has anything, we'll adjourn. There's going to be no meeting in December because we're in the process of changing over to the new committee. So Diane will send out the first meeting date in January. I plan to reapply, so I hope to be here, but I plan on stepping down as the chair.
Okay, so everybody keep that in mind. If you're interested, maybe speak to fellow committee members, see if someone would second you as a nomination for chair. Any other items?
We made the website update.
Oh,
We're
yes.
meeting on that. So Diane and I tomorrow are meeting with Frank Cocchinolio, manager, because there's two Frank Cocchinolios in IT,
I know, I know.
which is great.
Mhm.
Frank Cocchinolio and Tessa Vecchio. And there's a budget request to update the city's website. And they have asked that about a third of that funding to update the website come out of the accessibility fund, reserve fund. So the ask is about $21,000. I think the reserve fund has about 50 in it now. I met briefly with Tessa and she suggested that a lot of the accessibility features aren't actually possible on the website now because of the back end is so old. So they want to redo the back end of it. But it's not all about just accessibility. I think the website's kind of got a little bit long in the tooth and everybody puts everything down the left side. And it's kind of gotten, so I sort of said, I think it needs to come to this committee and I think we need to make a compelling argument. In order for, to get the committee's approval. So they're especially, because I think that's probably needs to sort of that needs to get sorted out, I would suspect. I believe the plan is to bring the table the budget in January, which is a little bit later than normal.
It
but
might be even, it's hopefully, well, it should be
Table it in January, then approve it in February.
presentations in January
So that,
and have it
Yeah.
finalized February because of the election.
so I anticipate that our finance department folks, they want to kind of have this stuff sorted out before Christmas, I think, before the new year. So there may be a need for a special meeting. We'll see.
Well, then perhaps we could go forward with meeting in December then if there's a requirement, because that would help us to take care of three things. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, so we may end up having a meeting
Okay.
in December. Even though everyone's reapplying, I don't know if at the December meeting, I don't think in December the applications will be processed and decisions made.
No,
I
because,
think that's usually January,
yeah,
right?
everyone's term goes to the end of the calendar year.
Okay,
So you're,
Perfect.
Oh, is that how it works?
Mhm.
okay.
Right for the committees.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I got a question, and it might be a concern,
Mhm.
committee members. When people apply, how are they chosen?
goes to a nomination committee.
Okay. I've been on the committee now for 2 years. And many times we haven't hit quorum. And I think the process of choosing committee members should be adjusted.
Well, it's all through the municipal act. And it goes to a nomination committee.
Okay,
So the nomination committee is a committee of council.
You sit on that.
okay,
Yeah,
because,
Diane's, yeah.
Diane's on that.
And there's staff too.
okay, because there's committee members that I've never heard participate.
Those discussions happen at the nomination.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think you're right, Carol. We've had no quorum for several meetings in the past as well. I think we've been in a very strange time where we're having hybrid, and for 2 years we had no meetings. But that being said, participation and attendance will be looked at. And as well, we need to try really hard to select committee members from different demographics so that we've got representation from various different kinds of disabilities. So that will certainly be a factor as well. So once all of the applications come in, and thankfully somebody did point out to me that, the requirement to be able to add in a resume, because it was required, it's not an optional field, could pose a systemic barrier for a lot of people with disabilities that don't necessarily have a resume, but they have, excellent lived experience. They're active in the community. They have good skills to be able to participate and give quality feedback. So we don't want that to be a barrier.
And there is a section on the actual application about relevant experience, so if you just write 2 or 3 sentences in there, you should be good. I might as well admit it was me who brought the concern to Diane.
Yes, yes, it was. So we've got a lot of data or a lot of different qualities that we'll be looking for in the applications. So with a little bit of luck, I really, really look forward to having an active committee for the next 2 years. And I'm also looking to do more training with the committee. I'm thinking about various different ways to be creative with training. We don't want to spend the first 6 months learning about the legislation, but surely we can learn about it as we go. I'm thinking training lunchtime, training meetings in between AAC meetings. So I'll experiment with what I think might work, and hopefully we'll get some good activity.
great. Yeah. I think participation makes a big difference.
Thank you, Carol. That's really good feedback.
And,
You need to hit quorum.
yeah, it need the time. 2 to 4 for some people is very difficult. And
Yes, I think that 2 to 4 was a chosen time because of transit schedules.
I get that.
It's a quieter
Yeah.
time. But perhaps we need to look at that as well.
Let's put it this way, no Greyhound game meeting times, because you're not getting above.
Oh, no.
Right.
yeah,
And I go out with a small group, we go bowling on Friday nights, and we plan around the Greyhound.
yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, so we're flexible on meeting times,
Mhm.
for sure, even after hours. But granted, you're gonna get into a Greyhound game potentially, but, because I think they will play every night of the week at some point throughout the year, right? I think,
Right.
but you know, at that point, you can work around that too. So we
Right.
have some flexibility. It doesn't have to necessarily be this day and it doesn't necessarily have to be business hours.
Right, that's right.
I don't know, it has to be moved, so.
And I think on the application, it asks something about times of day that you're available or
Yes.
days of the week that you're available as well. So we can look at that as well to try to see what are people wanting? Do they want evenings? Do they want mornings? Do they want afternoons? Do they want Wednesdays? Do they want Tuesdays?
Mhm.
So
I
we can
don't
take a look at
understand
that.
why they apply if they're not coming to meetings. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, see, somewhere I think I read, if you miss so many meetings, or you 3 meetings or something like that, then you're taken off the committee,
Unless you give notification.
unless you give notification or something.
Yes, and I think that's under our terms of reference.
Okay.
Not been enforced.
No, yes.
I know, because I've been on the committee a while, we've had this discussion before, I'm sure you remember it.
It's probably a really nice time to just crack open that terms of reference. And
I think
have a
so.
look
Yeah.
and revisit that with the new committee. Usually it's a great time to do it at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that'll be part of the training as well, and going back to the very basics, what is the role of the committee? What are we supposed to be working on? So,
Yeah.
all right, so I think we'll probably have a meeting in December then, so I will send out notice with that as well, that our date will be,
I think you had to change September, I think that was one of
It
the
was a
ones.
miserable rainy day the last time we were here too. You were saying you were gonna walk inside, right?
You need to finalize like end of year.
Or
I
everybody
was
show
I
up.
was on Queen.
Yes. December 13th, so that will go on our minutes. All right,
So, it wasn't too bad coming here.
Right, I need to give my dad a call.
okay, good.
Dan, you want to talk for a second too, right? I just need to give my dad a call.
Yes.
He calls me and means there's something.
Yes,
Even if we don't get to it today, I can talk to you. I just thought I only personally or something.
okay,
But it's not silly, I'm just frustrated with it and went to the basis to
sure. I think we can cancel the live feed now. Thank